This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate. Just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Last week I was in rough shape, you know? Last week I saw my doctor. I told him, Doc, every day I wake up, I look in the mirror, I want to throw up. What's wrong with me? He said, I don't know, but your eyesight is perfect. Kid, last week nothing went right. I bought a Japanese car. I turned on the radio. I don't understand a word they're saying. I tell you what, my looks since my kid girls never went for me, you know? I was making love to one girl. She started to cry. I said to her, you'll hate yourself in the morning. She said, no, I hate myself now. You kid, I know I'm ugly. I stuck my head out the window, got arrested for mooning. When I was a kid, I had plenty of pimples, too. One day I fell asleep in the library. I woke up, a blind man was reading my face. I tell you, my life, things happen to me you wouldn't believe. Well, it's a weird feeling me standing in a men's room. You see your home phone number on the wall. I tell you, nothing works out. My wife, she don't help either, you know. I bought her a toy poodle. She almost killed it trying to put batteries in it. Yeah, well, my wife, you can't be nice. The other night I asked her, I said, what's your wildest sexual fantasy? She told me if I got my own apartment. Hey, that's the story of my life. No respect. I don't get no respect at all. Not easy being me. Well, yesterday for 2 hours, a guy followed me with a pooper scooper. Hey, I don't get no respect from anyone. I bought some rat poison. The girl asked me, shall I wrap it up? You're going to eat it here. I tell you, I don't get a break with nothing. I can't take it no more. What do you say we bust up this joint, huh? Nothing works out. My sex life is nothing. My wife cut me down to once a month. Oh, I'm lucky. 2 guys I know she cut out completely. My wife, are you kidding? She had a mirror put in over our bed. Yeah, she told me she likes to watch herself laugh.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, September the 2nd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and President Trump. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. First Maria, then Varney and Company.
And don't forget, we're 2 weeks away from a likely cut in interest rates by the Federal Reserve in its next monetary policy meeting. Great to talk with you this morning, guys. Thank you, Liz Peek and Gregory Farinello. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
All right. Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. It may have been a 3-day holiday weekend, but the president still managed to make a lot of news. Consider this. The president may declare a housing emergency this fall. The backdrop here is his ongoing fight with the Federal Federal Reserve for lower interest rates. He wants mortgage rates down. Treasury Secretary Bessent has revealed which jobs will be covered by Trump's no tax on tips. It is a long list, which Bessent says will especially help the working class. On trade, the president said today, he said it, that India had offered to cut their tariffs on American goods to nothing. But, he says, it's getting late. They should have done so years ago. We'd better get to the markets because we are now into September. That is often a difficult month for investors, and it's starting out with great difficulty. The Journal says Trump's September is filled with tough deadlines, and you can say that again. The Dow is down 450 points. That's pre-market. The S&P is down 1.2%, 78 points. The Nasdaq is down a sharp 1.56%. Big sell-off. Bitcoin was around 110 grand. Now it's dropped back to 108.8. Interest rates, we have them pegged just a little higher. The yield on the 10-year Treasury, well above 4.25%. You're at 4.30 now. The 2-year moving up to 3.68%. Another record high for the price of gold. It's now well above $3,500 an ounce, 35.48 to be precise. On the show today, the president praises D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. He says she's now very popular because crime in the capital is down. But in Chicago, the crime surge continues. 54 shot, 7 fatalities. But the mayor says his administration will not allow federal troops in the city, and his police will not cooperate with ICE. Putin meets Xi Jinping today. They reportedly agreed on a natural gas pipeline to get Russian gas from Siberia into China. Tomorrow, there'll be a big military parade in Beijing. North Korea's Kim Jong-un will be there too. The authoritarians are challenging America's global leadership. Secretary of State Rubio, he's going to be in Mexico today. He wants action against the drug cartels. At the same time, the Navy, the U.S. Navy, has assembled a powerful force near Venezuela. Not clear what the objective is. Could be action against the cartels or regime change for Maduro in Venezuela. Longtime New York Congressman, very progressive guy, Jerry Nadler. He says he will not seek re-election next year. And then there's this. At the U.S. Open, a man snatched a player's hat from a young boy. He's the CEO of a Polish paving company. He has apologized, but he's probably the most disliked guy at the Open this year. Tuesday, September the 2nd, 2025, Varney and Company is about to begin.
And that is Varney and Company. Back in a minute. Oh, nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Maria Bartiromo.
Welcome back. The Trump administration canceling nearly $700 million worth of offshore wind projects at nationwide ports, overhauling 12 major projects granted by the Biden administration. One project in Northern California's Humboldt Bay was getting more than $420 million in federal funding. Joining me now is U.S. Energy Secretary Christopher Wright. Secretary, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here. You've got all these projects which are, not necessarily projects that you can rely on. I mean, is the wind blowing? Is the sun shining? And yet hundreds of millions of dollars were going at these projects. Tell us more.
There we go. So what she's asking the energy secretary to do is to do her job for her. She is supposed to be a journalist. She is supposed to be an investigative journalist. She's supposed to do the investigations. She should be the one that is telling us what it is that's going on with these wind projects and whether they're good or bad, right or wrong. But instead, she's asking an office holder to do it for her. And when I hear this, I'm thinking, well, he's going to give us the party line. He is going to represent the administration. That's his job. It's not to do investigative journalism. So again, more journalistic malpractice, nonprofit news now. Thank you. So on tariffs, there's this big deal over the fact that a court issued an opinion, and that's what courts do. They don't issue orders. They don't have executive authority, so they don't get to issue an order. They get to issue an opinion. Now, they issued the opinion that there's something wrong with the executive branch's tariffs, that they're illegal. And this is a good point for President Trump, to say separate but equal. Continue with the tariffs no matter what the courts decide, and just keep going, because it is separate but equal. To do anything else, take the course of action that President Trump is taking right now, which is to curry the favor of the courts, is to suggest to the American people that the president and the executive branch are supervised by the courts. They're not. Okay? They're separate but equal. The best thing that any president ever said was, and it was decades ago, maybe a century ago, a president said, the court has made its ruling, now let them enforce it. Okay? Because the executive branch is the one that's going to have to enforce the court's ruling. So, again, best thing for President Trump to do is simply to tell the American people, separate but equal, and continuous tariffs. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of motivation.
Working on yourself, talking to yourself. That's so very important. Overcoming the negative conversation, that inner dialogue that's going on all the time. Even when you don't want it to be there. You can't stop yourself right now from thinking. You can't do it. It's going on. And so learning how to empower yourself, part of doing that is standing up to yourself. You've got to stand up inside yourself sometimes and say, shut up. I was going to give a presentation, and this voice inside of me saying, you can't do this. You don't have everything it takes. I shut up. I'm behind on my bills, and you're telling me what I can't do. I have got to do it. You'll get scared sometimes. Your mind will go blank on you. Some people you will allow to unnerve you, and you wonder, what's wrong with me? I'm not crazy. That's why you've got to learn to make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to stand up inside yourself. Working on yourself, watching that inner dialogue, it will determine the quality of your life.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation.
Welcome to Moniculi Wellness and Healing. Hi, I'm Monica McCarthy, here to help you create balance, harmony, and peace in your life. In today's video, we're diving into a 3-minute mindfulness meditation designed to bring you into the present moment and cultivate a sense of peace. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And slowly exhale. Let's begin. Take a slow, deep inhale through your nose. Feel your belly expand. Hold for a moment. And now exhale through your mouth, letting go of any tension. Breathe in calm. Breathe out stress. With each breath, allow yourself to settle into this moment. Nothing to do, nowhere to be. Just here and now. Now bring awareness to your body. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your breath. the air on your skin, the subtle sounds around you. Simply observe without judgment. If thoughts arise, acknowledge them and let them float by like clouds in the sky. Always returning to your breath in this moment. Now silently repeat to yourself. I am present. I am calm. I am at peace. Take one last deep inhale and a slow, gentle exhale. When you're ready, open your eyes, bringing this mindfulness into your day. Thank you for sharing this moment of presence with me. Wishing you peace and clarity. If you enjoyed this, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more wellness insights. Drop a comment and let me know what you'd like to work on next.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little poetry.
Many an evening I've lingered beneath the purple hush of Texas twilight while the dust gathered itself like burial clothes among the trees and felt upon my skin the first insidious kiss of that ancient scourge which man, for all his machinations and learning, has never bested nor banished, the mosquito. I reckon there are mysteries in this world, and possibly the next, that no mortal man may cipher, but this one weighs heaviest upon me, pressing against the corners of my mind like the jaws of a steel vice. Lord, why? Why spawn such a creature whose only gospel is the pilfering of our blood? They do not gather nectar, nor bear pollen upon their legs as bees do, serving the grand economy of blooms and fruit. They beget no honey, weave no silk, grant no color nor music to the world, save the droning whine that flits about the ear in darkness, heralding violation of plenty. Was it in some cosmic jest that you conceived them, or do you require from each human soul in the dark hours between sundown and moonrise a tithing of blood? A sacrifice, small yet eternal, as proof of our residency upon this spinning rock. In my youth, a pastor told me there are no mistakes, that all things were fashioned for a purpose oft hidden from the simplicity of man. But I beg you, Lord, tell me they don't follow us beyond the veil, or else I may be forced to reconsider my former deliberations. Many an evening I've...
Yeah, it was a little bit of poetry about mosquitoes. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, President Trump's interview on Squawk Box.
It's mistaken 50 years. Why? Why wasn't there an explanation?
It's 258,000 less in 2 months. That was the biggest revision since 1968, Mr. President. So we're in the internet age. We still can't get any instant data. We're still using snail mail to get the responses back. It is the government, after all. Antiquated, no doubt, and certainly suboptimal, but rigged? Where do you get the notion that it's rigged, or do you have any evidence there?
It is antiquated, but it's also very political. And, I had an election recently where I did very well, won every swing state, won the popular vote, won everything, all right? Won all the counties. It's, I think 87% of the counties were Republican up. That's never happened before. And yet I had to go through hell. And just days before the election, they put out numbers that it was like the country was on fire. It was doing so well. And then they did a revision about 2 weeks later, and the revision was down by almost 900,000 jobs. You remember that? And I said, what would have happened? What would have happened if I lost? Think of it. I would have said they gave phony numbers, and then they revised them a week and a half later.
Those were benchmark numbers, though, Mr. President. That happens. They do that. They do that twice a year, and it reconciles the monthly figures with, like, the overall numbers. And it was a big number, and obviously
the numbers were rigged. The numbers were rigged. Biden wasn't doing well. He was doing poorly. They announced these phenomenal numbers 2 days before the election. And a little bit before that, always these great numbers, and you knew it wasn't doing well. You knew prices were through the roof and inflation was terrible. The whole thing was bad. But think of it. Then they did the biggest revision, I think, in history of almost 900,000 jobs. And it turned out to be more than that because later on they did another revision. And so they gave phony numbers in order to win the election. After I won the election, I said too big to rig. But after I won the election, then they announced a downward number, in other words, to bring them back to reality. And I said, wow, supposing I would have lost, I would have blamed that, and people would have said I was a conspiracy theorist. It's crazy.
Elaine Chao was on yesterday, and I know, she was, I think she was Labor Secretary for 8 years under Bush II, and she was your Transportation Secretary as well. And she said, the commissioner doesn't really even get involved with the actual minutia of putting all these things together. And there's no way that it could have been, that she could have chosen to rig these numbers to make them look bad. And these are statistical changes based on this antiquated system, and it's just a big leap to go to rigged. And then it also, Mr. President, it makes anyone you pick is going to be, critics are going to say, hey, he's picking a guy that's going to give him or a gal that's giving him the numbers that he wants. So it undermines confidence in the system to some extent. You had, according to many people, all the rights in the world to try to replace a commissioner when hasn't gotten any better. But that is maybe a bridge too far, according to most people.
Well, I think when somebody says the commissioner is not involved, I don't want to get into any arguments with anybody. Why should I? She's a very nice woman.
Exactly.
But when they say that that nobody was involved, that it wasn't political, give me a break. Look, before the election, I had this massive outflow of beauty for Biden. I mean, he didn't know he was alive. And for Biden, the economy was roaring. It was a beautiful thing. And I said, there's no way this is happening. It's going the opposite direction. And 2 weeks later, they said I was right. But even if you look at the original, the ones from the other day, the numbers were very timid. And then they announced something that made them even more timid on top of it. On sort of a reporting day, I don't know why, it just seemed a little bit more important than most times when they announced these numbers.
We talked earlier that the unemployment rate is still low. It's 4.2%.
It's fine. I'm not saying earth-shattering. I will say this. The numbers before the election were earth-shattering. I'm not saying these were earth-shattering. But then they announced a couple of 100,000 to make it look a little bit worse from, months before. I said, where did those numbers come from? So,
for as much as you want to,
it's a highly political situation. It's totally rigged. Smart people know it. People with common sense know it. And a lot of people to keep their head under the covers. And
let's move on to this. Which number do you believe at this point? Because if you noticed, suddenly the chances of what you've wanted for months and argued for months, the chances of a rate cut soared because of these numbers. Do you not believe the current numbers because they're playing right into what you want the Fed and Jay Powell to do? They're not horrible, as you said, but perhaps with the tariffs, some businesses delayed some spending. Some consumers may have been less certain about the future. So maybe we're seeing a slight slowdown in labor, but you're going to get exactly what you want based on these numbers. Which ones do you believe? Do you not believe the revised numbers either?
It's not what I want. I don't want that. I wanted it a year ago. I wanted it a long time ago. Jay Powell is highly political, and I think, I call him too late. Jerome, too late. Powell, he's too late. He's too late always. He always has been, except when it came to lowering interest rates before the election, that That he did. He worked that out.
Who would you replace him with? I know you watch the show occasionally, and we had an extended interview with one of the prospective replacements, Kevin Warsh. Were you watching that day, or? I
was. He's very good. He's very good. He's very good. Sometimes they're all very good until you put them in there, and then they don't do so good. But a lot of them, I think he's a very good guy. I think I say Kevin and Kevin. Both Kevins are very good. And there are other people that are very good too. But
Kevin's like Karens. I don't know if that's good.
A lot of times they're very good. Like this character that we have in there now, Jerome Too Late Bell. He was very good. He said, "Sir, I'll keep interest rates so low. I'm a low interest rate person, sir." You could hardly hear him talking over the desk.
Is Warsh
somebody that worked for me was a big fan of his. Not a fan of his. He hardly knew him, but he wanted him so badly. I did somebody a favor. I put him in there. No, he's too late. He's too late. That name will stick to him.
Can you handicap it at all? Who you're, or you won't know? When will you know? And when will you announce it?
Two Kevins are doing well, and I have two other people that are doing well. Look, it's in the end there are numerous people that are qualified. Everyone on your phone right now, in terms of at your beautiful studio, would be very qualified, in my opinion. You guys are better than most of the people that do it for a living. But I watched a lot, actually. No, I think that it'll be one of four people.
Are the other
They're not going to
two
make
names?
the decision soon. And don't forget, we have somebody that left early, which was a pleasant surprise. We have a woman that left early. She announced 2 days ago that she's leaving, and I'm going to be announcing that very shortly, too. That will be, most likely it'll be for the 4 months, for the short period of time. But a lot of people say that when you do that, why don't you just pick the person who's going to head up the Fed? That's a possibility, too.
President Trump, you said there are four names. There are two other names that have been mentioned in the press. One is Governor Waller. The other is the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Are those the four that you're considering?
Well, I love Scott, but he wants to stay where he is. I'll take him off because I asked him just last night, is this something you want? Nope, I want to stay where I am. He actually said, I want to work with you. It's such an honor. I said, that's very nice. I appreciate that. But, no, Scott wants to do what he's doing. He's doing a great job, and he wants to do what he's doing. So I just take him off. He does not want it. He likes being Treasury Secretary. He's doing a really good job. We made the greatest trade deals in the history of our country. We had to because we were being ripped off by the world. It's not like we had a choice. If we would have gotten these trade deals, if you would have had a normal president that would have just continued to allow every country in the world to rip you off, we would not have a country anymore. Your show would be off the air. There'd be nothing to look at. It would be a disaster. We were in such bad shape when I took over. Eggs had tripled in price. More than that. Everything was up, and prices are down, and it bugs me. I looked at CNN the other night, which is a failing deal. It's got no ratings, and I'm probably the only guy watching. And I watched these guys talking about, well, with Trump, prices are up. No, prices are down since I came in. Down. All prices just about, except for the price of stock. The price of stock is way up, okay? But prices are down. And if you look at energy, I'll give you an example. Joe, look at energy.
Some of them, but...
Energy is way down. Energy is down to $2.20 a gallon now for a car. It's down to a level. You're down, I guess, around $65 a barrel, but it's going down. There's tremendous energy. And if you notice, OPEC and OPEC Plus, they're drilling more. They want to drill more because I think they want me happy. Because if energy goes down low enough, Putin's going to stop killing people. That'll be nice, even though they're his own people that are dying, him and Ukraine. But Putin will stop killing people if you get energy down another $10 a barrel. He's going to have no choice because his economy stinks.
Mr. President, it's Andrew here. It's great to speak with you. I just wanted to ask you about, you mentioned tariffs, and on Sunday you talked again about this idea of dividends for middle and lower income folks that might come off of the tariffs, meaning the revenue that's coming in from the tariffs. And I wanted you to maybe explain how that might work in practice and how you're thinking about that and the trade-offs between paying down the debt, which I thought was something you had been talking a lot about, versus sending checks out, because obviously that creates its own debt for us.
So we're taking in trillions of dollars, Andrew. If you look at Japan, we're taking in $550 billion. And that's like a signing bonus that a baseball player would get. He would get slightly less no matter how good he is, right? But they give a signing bonus of $1 million or $2 million or $20 million or whatever the hell they give today. It's so out of control. But a signing bonus. So I got a signing bonus from Japan of $550 billion. That's our money. It's our money to invest as we like. European Union, $650 billion. Think of it. And they're going to buy $750 billion worth of our energy. And they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And, by the way, they're going to open up their countries, which they've never done. Japan has never. If you did business in Japan, they would arrest you. You're not allowed to do any business. And now Japan has totally opened up their country. They're even taking our rice, which is something that nobody said was possible. But more importantly, they're taking our cars. They're taking the very beautiful Ford 150, which does very well, and I'm sure will do very well there. And other things that do very well here will also do well there. You'd be surprised at some of the great things we make. But Japan has opened up. All of these. Indonesia's opened up their country. South Korea has opened up their country. But not only open up, and that's going to be huge business. When you open up South Korea, it's a closed country. And now all of a sudden we're allowed to sell cars into South Korea and trucks and SUVs. I mean, we're really opening it up. Vietnam is opening up their country. You know, these are all closed countries. But the EU was closed. They wouldn't take our agriculture. I said to, let me just say, a prime minister, a very nice prime minister, a couple of years ago, I said, how many cars are you taking a year? Let me guess, is it one or two? She said, no, we don't take any of your cars. I said, that's right. That's not nice. I said, that's not right. That's not a nice thing, Angela. But they took none of them, and now they take all our cars, all our trucks. Everything is open, 100%. In addition, the EU is going to pay us $650 billion. We're going to round it off, actually, because of certain things, to $600 billion. And think of it. They're going to put up $750 billion. We're a rich country again. Now, these are just deals that I'm announcing. These are the biggest ones because EU is, essentially Europe. We made great deals with all of the countries, and they're being fair about it. One other thing, for your listeners that perhaps are a little bit less wealthy than some of your listeners, I'm doing something that nobody's ever done before. As you know, for 30 years, Europe has had drug prices that are, in many cases, 1/10 the cost of drugs in here. Same manufacturing plant, same everything. 1/10. I've invoked favored nations. Now, there is no favored nations laws. I've just said there is, okay, because we're not going to pay 10 times more per pill than they pay in Europe. Then that's going to have a tremendous impact on the price of medicine.
Mr. President, what kind of teeth, though, are in those investments? What kind of teeth are in those investments, meaning that would force the EU to make those investments? If they don't make those investments, what happens on the other side?
Well, then they pay tariffs of 35%. No, they brought down their tariffs. So they paid $600 billion, and because of that, I reduced their tariffs from 30% down to 15%. And a couple of countries came, how come EU is paying less than us? And I said, well, because they gave me $600 billion. And that's a gift. That's not like, a loan, by the way. That's not a loan that, 3 years comes up, we have to pay it back. There's nothing to pay back. They gave us $600 billion that we can invest in anything we want.
The deal that you
and nobody knows it, Becky. Nobody knows it because they don't know.
No, we have been trying to figure out the details on that, Mr. President. So
well, there are no details.
Clarity on
the details are $600 billion to invest in anything I want. Anything.
Okay.
I can do anything I want with it. And the purpose was they've been, ripping us for so many years that it's time that they pay up, and they have to pay up. We couldn't afford to have the deficits. Look, I did something with Switzerland the other day. I spoke to their prime minister. The woman was nice, but she didn't want to listen. And they paid essentially no tariffs. And I said, we have a $41 billion deficit with you, madam. I didn't know her. I said, we have a $41 billion deficit. And you want to pay 1% tariffs. You wanted 1%. I said, you're not going to pay 1%. We lose. Because I view deficit as loss. You have some people. By the way, I think
pharmaceuticals are a big issue with Switzerland. I think.
Well, I'll go into pharmaceuticals. Yeah. They make a fortune with pharmaceuticals, and they make our pharmaceuticals in China and Ireland and everything else. And within the next week or so, we're going to be announcing tariffs on specifically. This is a separate class than the 15% tariffs on sort of everything. These are excluded classes, I call them. I like to call them excluded, like steel, aluminum, etc.
Right, the
well,
232.
we're going to be announcing on semiconductors and chips, which is a separate category, because we want them made in the United States. And by the way, they're being made in the United States. You know, we have the biggest in the world, as you know, from Taiwan is coming over and spending $300 billion in Arizona, building the biggest plant in the world for chips and semiconductors. But on pharmaceuticals, we'll be putting a initially small tariff on pharmaceuticals, but in 1 year,
President
1.5 years maximum, it's going to go to 150%, and then it's going to go to 250%, because we want pharmaceuticals made in our country. And that's not the CHIPS Act like Biden did, because he didn't know what he was doing, where they gave billions of dollars to companies that had more money than they knew what to do with.
President Trump, can I ask you about something that you're doing that's opposite of the Biden administration, too? And that's the latest deal that you've announced. The latest deal, though, that you're announcing with India, you're upset with the trade deal there, especially because they're buying Russian oil. The Biden administration sanctioned Russian oil, but then they kind of winked and nodded and appreciated that India and China were buying some of that oil because they were worried it would raise oil prices and thereby prices at the pump. To you, is it more important to shut down the Russians on this than to worry about oil prices?
I'm not worried about prices because we're drilling at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And what Biden did is he stopped my drilling. And then prices, if you remember that first couple of months, prices went through the roof. And he immediately said, let's go back to what Trump was doing. Let's go back to it. But by that time, they had blown it, and the energy prices were so high, and that's what caused that, and his crazy spending is what caused, by the way, the largest inflation in the history of our country was during the Biden administration. Not 48 years. You know, they like to say 48 years. It was the largest in the history of our country, the inflation that we had during Biden, because the man obviously didn't know what he was doing. But with India, what people don't like to say about India, they're the highest tariff nation. They have the highest tariff of anybody. We do very, very little business with India because their tariffs are so high. So India has not been a good trading partner because they do a lot of business with us, but we don't do business with them. So we settled on 25%, but I think I'm going to raise that very substantially over the next 24 hours because they're buying Russian oil, they're fueling the war machine, and if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah, a lot of deals signed. I don't know. I thought India was imminent. I'm not sure what the sticking point is there, Mr. President. But let's just, since we don't have all day, we got to talk China.
Well, the sticking point with India is that tariffs were too high. Now, I will say this: but India went from the highest tariffs ever. They will give us 0 tariffs. And they're going to let us go in. But that's not good enough because of what they're doing with oil. Not good.
It looked like you were going to have a meeting, and people were talking about it with President Xi, and then you went out of your way to kind of say other people are saying, I think you even called it fake news or something. It looked like you were indicating that you were unhappy or that talks had broken down, and we've had a couple of frameworks or some positive moves. In China, you've had a lot of success with other countries. China is a big deal and not quite the elephant in the room, but certainly an important trading partner. Where does that stand? Will there be a meeting between you and President Xi? Anything planned at this point? What's the sticking point now, and how optimistic are you that we get a comprehensive
deal? Well, I can have a meeting. We have a very good relationship, but I didn't call for the meeting. He called for the meeting. So the fake news announced Donald Trump wants a meeting with China. No, I didn't want it. No, he asked for a meeting. And I'll end up having a meeting before the end of the year, most likely, if we make a deal. If we don't make a deal, I'm not going to have a meeting. I mean, what's the purpose of meeting if we're not going to make a deal? But we're getting very close to a deal. We're getting along with China very well. I will tell you, you had a point when I had 145% tariffs on. I put in for fentanyl. I actually said to people, where are we now with China, by the way? Because I kept adding more and more. They said, sir, you're up to 145%. I said, you got to be kidding. So I sort of had to bring it down a little bit. But when it was up to 145%, meaning we were doing 0 business with China, China was collapsing. I don't know if you know that. You haven't reported it, if you do. But China was collapsing. China is very reliant on the United States. My relationship with him is very good. I think we'll make a good deal. It's not imperative, but I think we're going to make a good deal. But no, they had a thing that Donald Trump really wanted to go there. No, I don't. It's a 19-hour flight. It's a long flight. But at some point in the not-too-distant future, I will. And just to end this conversation in China, I have a very good relationship with President Xi. Always had, other than the COVID moment where I was very angry with him and essentially didn't want to talk to him, frankly, because, it did come out of Wuhan, in all fairness, which I was saying from the day one. I was saying I knew exactly where it came from. But that did interfere with the relationship. But no, I've had a great relationship with President Xi. We respect him a lot. They respect us a lot. They didn't respect Biden. They thought he was a numbskull. They couldn't believe he was the president of the United States, and neither can anyone else that happened.
Mr. President, on a different topic, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that you're prepping an order that they say would punish banks that discriminate against conservatives, including potentially Bank of America. I'm going to be actually talking to Brian Moynihan here later today. Can you tell us about that executive order? What's in that? And what do you think the banks have done?
Well, they did discriminate. I had J.P. Morgan Chase. I had hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. I could see if they want to, if they want to do something bad because you don't have any money and you defaulted and they took people out. But I'll give you me as an example. I had hundreds of millions. I had many, many accounts loaded up with cash. I was loaded up with cash, and they told me, "I'm sorry, sir. We can't have you. You have 20 days to get out." I said, "You got to be kidding. I've been with you for 35, 40 years." They said, and I mean, I had all this. I didn't know what to do with it. And I went to, and you could ask him. Maybe he's not going to admit it. So I said, I was informed by my people that we have to get out of Chase Manhattan. That's Jamie and J.P. Morgan Chase. So I said, I can't believe it. Well, I was never in this situation before. I've never had anything like it. And it's not like, gee, you defaulted on a loan. I can understand that. That's different. But there's no default. I mean, there's nothing but cash. I have a really great company. And then what happens is I call up Bank of America routinely because when I was president, this was after I got out, by the way, I call up Bank of America routinely. And I speak to him and I speak to a couple of people, and they have zero interest. Brian was kissing my ass when I was president, and when I called him after I was president to deposit $1 billion plus and a lot of other things, more importantly to open accounts, which banks always like. They like accounts because they get interest free, the overnights and things, there are a lot of reasons for it, but they like accounts. I had hundreds of accounts, and he said, we can't do it. No, we can't do it. So I went to another one. I ended up going to small banks all over the place. I mean, I was putting 10 million here, 10 million there, did 5 million, 10 million, 12 million. I have them all over the place, the craziest thing. And it's lucky I even had them. They were doing me a favor. And that's because the banks discriminated against me very badly. And I was very good to the banks. I had the greatest economy in the history of our country when I was president. And by the way, our economy now will blow that away, and you see it happening. But our economy now, because we're a rich country again, because of our trade deals, we've become a rich country again. But no, they totally discriminate against, I think me maybe even more, but they discriminate against many conservatives. I told that story and sitting around tables with other people that were conservative or Trump supporters. I think the word might be Trump supporters more than conservative. And I believe what they did is they went to the regulators. Banks are not afraid of anything but a regulator. They're regulators and their wives. They're more afraid of their wives than the regulators. But the group they're really afraid of is bank regulators. And I believe that Biden or Kamala, and I don't think they're smart enough to do it, but the people that are surrounding the beautiful Resolute desk, the high IQ people that are radical left, I believe they told the banking commission, the bankers, that the banking regulators, do everything you can to destroy Trump. And that's what they did. And guess what? I'm president. How did that happen?
Yeah, Mr. President, you've talked about you want success, not retribution. The Justice Department now tapping a grand jury to look into the intelligence community's assessment of what was happening with Russia. Is that you have nothing to do with directing the Justice Department?
No, I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you this. They deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it. But what they did in the election, what they did in even the last election, but it was too big to rig. But what they did in the 2020 election is grotesque. I mean, that was a rigged election, 100%.
Okay, we can't relitigate that. We can't relitigate that.
No, we're back to rigging again. Well, you can use it because everyone knows it.
Yeah,
you know what? A year ago, you would have been upset if I said it. Today, it's different. I say it all the time. It was a rigged election, but 100% rigged.
We can't relitigate because
and I'm sure that's going to be brought up.
Independent sources, even your Justice Department. But then I'm bringing up Bill Barr. But even they decided that there were things that happened, but nothing that would have swayed it.
Well, they were wrong, and Bill Barr was wrong, and Bill Barr didn't investigate, and he should have. And why didn't Bill Barr give why didn't he give the Derma report? Why didn't he give that report? The stuff that's in there, that's all the stuff is coming out of it. Why didn't he give it earlier? I mean, why did it take so long to do it? And why didn't he give it? Why didn't they announce it earlier? Because it morphed. What happened is it morphed into the Biden administration, and the Biden administration buried it. So it's too bad.
How about Texas? Now we're going to do mid-year or midterm gerrymandering based on that's going to be a quid pro quo or something with. In blue states now, Mr. President, did you?
Well, they did it to us. Those blue states that you're talking about. Somebody gave a good example. In Massachusetts, I got, I think, 41% of the vote. It's a very, blue state. And yet it's got 100% of Congress, 100%. So I got 41% or something. And yet 100% of Congress in Massachusetts. No, it shouldn't be that way. We should have a couple of Congress people, but we have none. And think of this, 100%. In Illinois, we have probably the dumbest of all governors. Illinois, that guy is really the business is flowing out of his state. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing that Pritzker's doing. He was the black sheep of the family. They threw him out of the business. But in Illinois, what's happened is terrible, what they're doing. And you notice they go to Illinois for safety, but that's all gerrymandered. California's gerrymandered. We should have many more seats in Congress in California. It's all gerrymandered. And we have an opportunity in Texas to pick up 5 seats. We have a really good governor, and we have good people in Texas. And I won Texas. I got the highest vote in the history of Texas, as you probably know. And we are entitled to 5 more seats.
I don't know. I'd have to check on that, and they expect.
Check it. Why don't you check it, Brian?
The fact checkers expect us to check everything you say on the phone.
I want you to
but
check
for
it.
4 years, those fact checkers didn't fact check anything that was said about. We don't need to relitigate that either, but they expect fact checking.
Joe, why don't you
immediately.
check it, okay? Because I'd like you to. I got the highest vote in the history of Texas, okay? By a lot.
Mr. President, can I ask you back to the economy and just on some of the things we've seen with the jobs report, the weakness in those numbers that came out last week. People are trying to figure out where the weakness is coming from. Part of it may be because of immigration. Now, people voted you into office because they were concerned about immigration policy in this country. But if you look at the jobs report last week, it did show a 1.7 million drop-off of foreign-born workers from March to July.
And that's a great number, by the way. That's a great number. Because it means we're putting Americans to work.
Well, the problem is immigrants have accounted for more than half of the U.S. workforce growth over the last 3 years. And so you wonder if that gets into an issue. And I know you've spoken with farmers who have had concerns about being able to find temporary workers there.
Right.
And I think their pleas have kind of hit you in a way where you looked at that a little differently.
Well, I think we're getting the criminals out of our country. Because they had an open border policy because they were fools, and they allowed people from prisons and gang members and drug dealers into our country. We're getting the criminals out of our country by the thousands, and they're taken. We have murderers. We have people that are mentally insane. They come out of insane asylums and psych wards, and they come out of places that you don't want to know about. You would not like to see it. But they dumped everybody in our country, from the Congo in Africa to all over South America. They dumped millions of people into our country that are dangerous people, and I'm getting them out. I'm working with the farmers, however, and the farmers have been great. I also got the highest vote for farmers, I think, that anybody's ever gotten. And I take care of the farmers. I love the farmers. They're a very important part of this country. And we're not going to do anything to hurt the farmers. And we're working on that, and we're going to be coming out with rules and regulations. I mean, You'll see a farmer with the same person working for him for 20 years. The person's even paying taxes and other things. And we're looking for the criminals, the people that murdered. You know, we have 11,888 people that came into our country under Biden, with our great czar, a border czar. She never called one. You know, she was a border czar. She never went to the border, and she never made one call to the Border Patrol. You know, other than that, she did a great job. But they had hundreds of people that were murderers, 11,888 murders, 50% of which murdered more than one person in our country. We've already gotten a lot of them out, and some of them are so dangerous we don't want to bring them back. We want to put them in our own prison because we don't want them coming back. But they allowed 11,888 murderers, many of which murdered more than one, into our population, and we're getting them out rapidly.
But, Mr. President, I just want to hear you clearly. You're saying the people who have been here for years and who have been even paying taxes, you're going to look at them very differently, and maybe they belong here in the workforce?
I want to work with them, and in some cases we're sending them back to their country with a pass back in legally, and we're doing things that are very difficult to do and very complex, but it works really well. We're sending them back, and then they're schooling, they're learning, they're coming in legally. We have a lot of that going on, but we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody, these people, you can't replace them very easily. You know, people that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried, we've tried, everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it? You know, these are very, you know, in many ways, they're very, very special people. Okay, go ahead.
No, okay, so, here we go. So you did get the highest number of votes in Texas, so that's true. But when you were talking about...
You don't have to say anything more, Joe.
I got to say this.
No, don't say anything more. Don't qualify it by saying, I got the highest number of votes.
You did.
In the history
I'm moving on. I'm moving on to your claim that revision helped Biden hurt you for the 800,000. It was in August. There was still plenty of time for voters to see that those weren't real jobs.
After the election in November, I believe it was in November something, there was a massive revision downward.
The first one, the 800,000 or 900,000, I think, was in August, and then later it came out in March of 2025. It went to 598, not 818. But the original one.
Listen, 598. But there were other revisions downward from prior to the election because the numbers were rigged. Okay, and as you said, the number. Look, you take a look after the election. How many revisions downward there were? But let's get back to Texas, because you said you were going to say something else. I got the highest vote in the history of Texas, a record that they say won't be beaten unless I run again.
Are you going to run again?
No,
Constitution
probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
And you're not going to fire Jay Powell. We'll go all talk about all the stuff that.
Hey, Becky, I'd like to run. I have the best poll numbers I've ever had. You know why? Because people love the tariffs, and they love the trade deal, and they love that foreign countries aren't ripping us off anymore. For years, they ripped us off, friend and foe. And the friend was worse.
Overall poll numbers, you don't have the best you ever had. In overall poll numbers, you do. I cited one of those.
I have the best poll numbers I've ever had.
Among
Republicans. I have poll numbers where I'm 71%. I have the best poll numbers.
Those are among Republicans. No.
Among Republicans, I'm at 94 and 95%. No, I'm talking about generally. I have the. Let me put it this way: there was a gentleman on Harry Emden yesterday on CNN, and he went crazy over how well Trump was doing. Now, you don't put that on because I think CBS is a shade. Actually, CNN's a shade better than NBC. I think NBC is probably the worst of them all. But if you check CNN tomorrow, watch Harry Emden, and you'll see about the numbers. But that's okay. We have to defend ourselves, Joe.
I know, but there are other. They can cite. Your haters cite polls that have you down in the 30s, Mr. President.
But they're fake polls, Joe. I had a lot of fake polls. You also have me in the 70s. I have fake polls. Fox gives me terrible polls all the time. You know, they do nothing but I've never had a good poll with Fox. And then I win an election and I go through the roof. Because, look, I won every swing state. Did I not? I won every swing state. Andrew, I won the popular vote by millions of votes. Even though they tried like hell to cheat, I won by millions of votes. I won the counties and all of the counties. I won 2,750 to 502. And I won the election in a landslide. And obviously that's only, we're only 6 months in. But my poll numbers are better now, much better than during the election. And now part of that is because the Democrat Party is self-destructing. I mean, when you have low IQ people like Crockett, I wonder if she's any relationship to the late, great Davy Crockett, who was a great gentleman. I wonder if she's got any relationship to Davy Crockett, the great old Davy Crockett. But you have this woman Crockett. She's a very low IQ person. Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding. The Democrats are lost. They have Trump derangement syndrome so bad that they can't walk.
There you go. Okay, so that was Donald Trump in his interview with CNBC. And again, just amazes me listening to these interviews. Number one, they don't know how to conduct an informational interview. That's what this is supposed to be. And as I've said in the past, the informational interview is conducted from a position of ignorance. You don't know the person that you're talking to. You don't know what they're about or what they're doing. So that's the way they should have approached this from Donald Trump. Hey, Donald Trump, what's going on with the economy? And then the president will give his answer to that. Then you fill in the blanks with who, what, where, when, why, and how. Then maybe you move on to another subject. But instead, these people are trying to shape reality. They start from a position of knowledge that they know what's going on. And as a matter of fact, they know it better than the president. And so the president's job is simply to confirm for the audience what it is that the interviewer already knows. And that's no good. Absolutely no good. So, back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that abortion is power for men.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.